Billions of shillings meant for government departments remain unclaimed at Bank of Uganda after the Ministry of Finance introduced stringent accounting measures. The implementation of the integrated financial management system introduced by the Ministry of Finance is aimed to truncate graft in state departments. However, ministries have shunned the new system and have opted not to withdraw their allotments, stalling several government projects. That is the topic of discussion tonight on Newsnight. Welcome to Newsnight, and joining me is Andrew Mwenda. Andrew, very good evening to you.
You always miss that.
Many will still argue about your age. Let's quickly move to the new system implemented by the Ministry of Finance, the integrated financial management system. Many seem to say that this would have actually addressed the huge graft that we have in government, and especially during procurement and, of course, whenever government is involved in business. Why isn't it working? Because already ministries are stuck. They don't have money, but they cannot also withdraw it.
There is a small problem why it may not be working,
yes,
in the sense that accounting officers in certain ministries may not be very conversant with the system. But let me tell you what the system does.
Yes.
And it comes in response to the problem that was happening last year. You see, previously, the government of Uganda, the treasury would release money, it would release it to ministries.
According to the budget of the ministry.
Exactly.
Yes.
So assuming they're releasing 100 billion for a quarter to a ministry.
Yes.
Now the ministry was at liberty to place this money on different accounts. Sometimes, like the OPM you saw last year, they had about 25 accounts. You would find any other ministry would have 10, 15, 30 accounts. They could hide this money from those accounts, and then they could withdraw it as cash to meet different expenditure requirements that they want. Now that system opened the management system of public money to a lot of theft. You remember Ministry of, rather OPM, they were
and public service.
They were withdrawing the money in billions of shillings and giving it to people, 9 billion to carry it in cash to go and pay for projects in northern Uganda.
But it had been happening before.
Yes.
Andrew, since
so, but what they have done now is to say, look, all these government ministry accounts have been shut down. Now government has only one account, just one account in the treasury. If you are the Ministry of Agriculture and you have been or Ministry of Education, whatever ministry you are, say they give you a release for a quarter of 100 billion.
Yes.
You can only enter your password as an accounting officer.
Yes.
And whatever expense you're going to do, first of all, has to be through banks and through checks. It leaves a record, a paper trail of whom are you paying, how much money are you paying them, and what is the purpose of this payment. Now,
so there is no cash transaction,
no
right
cash
from
transaction
the
at all.
Ministry of Finance or Bank of Uganda,
yes,
and the ministry.
Now let me tell you the result.
Yes.
The result is that many people in ministries were withdrawing that money to use it for private purposes. Because now the current system leaves a paper trail, most ministries are not touching their money to spend. As a consequence, there is very limited money in circulation. Because there is limited money in circulation, government is not spending, people are not, and you remember an economy is a circular flow of income.
Yes.
Your expenditure is another person's income.
Yes. Now,
if government is not spending, it means Morris is not earning money to buy airtime, when is not earning money to buy a cup of independent, another person is not earning money to buy beer or soda. If you look at private companies, Mokwano was telling me the other day, Alikan, their sales are down by 20%. I was being told by Amos Inzai, the owner of Pepsi Cola, he was saying their sales are going to be down by about 15-20%. So
and these can be connected and translated.
There is a direct relationship between less spending. Now let me give you another fact. Last week on Friday was the 15th of November, meaning that for the last quarter from October 1st to 31st December, the government of Uganda was supposed to have spent 1.2 trillion shillings.
Yes.
They have spent only 600 billion, less than 50% of the total money to be spent.
Yes.
Why are they not spending? It's because opportunities for spending to steal have been closed, and there is less incentive on the part of government officials to spend money that they are not going to earn from.
Do you actually want to say that there's a correlation between the amount of money that leaves, say, government coffers to the amount of money that actually is robbed? There is a percentage of that money,
yes, a significant percentage
that is actually taken by either procurement officers, accounting officers.
Yes, there is a World Bank study which shows that about 800 billion per year, which is almost 8% of the total budget, gets stolen. Now let me tell you, 800 billion gives you about 70.
But that is not in every ministry. There must be ministries where maybe graft levels are up to by maybe 5% of procurement or total procurement or total budget.
You take the
there are
national
ministries that probably are doing
50%. You know what you do, Maurice? You take the national average. If they are stealing about 840 billion
spread it around the ministries,
it means that you are 70 billion is not being stolen now. What
Yes.
does that mean? It means many people who are getting money from wedding meetings are not, for their wedding meetings, they're not getting the money. The real estate market is down because civil servants are not buying houses. The corruption opportunities have been closed. Then you have people who were spending this money, perhaps buying groceries or paying fees for their relatives. All this money is held out. Now that's one.
Yes.
Two, you imagine that in a whole quarter, we are halfway through the quarter. If in a quarter they release 2.4 billion, the first 45 days you expect to spend about 1.2 trillion.
Yes.
If you're supposed to spend about 1.2 trillion and have spent only 600 billion, what does that mean? It means that the 600 billion, as we're speaking right now, on government accounts that should have already been spent, that has not been spent. So it's not creating the multiplier effect. What is a multiplier? It is the number of times an initial expenditure multiplies itself to give a final change in income. That 600 billion, if it had been spent, would have given a final change in income of about 5 trillion shillings.
What's the solution here? Because if you say government has actually not spent in this last quarter close to 50% of money budgeted for, what's the solution?
Because well, the solution is me and you
yes.
sitting here talking about it. Now accounting officers in different ministries are going to begin spending.
But they'll not be able to actually nip some of that money. That the system does not allow them benefit from this money.
I am sure right now, Ugandan civil servants are very smart. They must be thinking of ways to overcome this current system.
By dealing with the provider, the service provider.
Exactly, they will collude with the service provider, perhaps to inflate bills so that they can be able to get their cut. But let me tell you another effect, which is political. Remember that when all these civil servants steal money, they normally show up at parliament to explain their spending.
Yes.
The parliamentarians have been making a lot of money from civil servants who are coming to explain their corruption. Right now, the parliamentarians are very broke. I am told by my sources at State House that all parliamentarians who are broke are flocking to the president to bail them out on their financial constraints. An effort to fight corruption at the level of the Ministry of Finance through the IFMS system is now strengthening Museveni's hand, because now it is him who can sit and distribute patronage to all these MPs who can no longer get a cut from the civil servants.
Isn't that a promotion of the same graft that we seemingly want to fight? But the fact that the system, on one hand, is blocking the stealing, but on the other hand is actually encouraging patronage.
It's encouraging patronage. What it will do is, I do not think that State House would have sufficient resources that. Imagine the amount of money that was dispersed across so many ministries and government departments, which was feeding these MPs. State House does not have that amount of money unless they increase their budget from 200 billion to 700 billion. Perhaps he can afford to meet the needs of these MPs. But I can tell you that this perhaps is short term, in the sense that people are trying to learn how to beat the system.
Yes.
But for now, the system is so tough that the following things it does. A, it leaves a paper trail. You imagine, previously you could call a workshop.
Yes.
It is attended by 200 people. You claim it was attended by 600 people.
And forge signatures.
And forge signatures and pay out allowances, attendance allowances to 600 people.
Yes.
400 of whom are ghost attendees. Now they are insisting that even if there is a workshop, if you are going to give a transport refund or a lunch, it must be paid to the account of the person who is attending, the attendee.
Directly.
If you forge 400 signatures and names,
you can forge
and
400
collude with the
accounts.
bank now, the next workshop will you forge?
No.
Otherwise, you will have a paper trail which shows that the people attending your workshops are always the same 400.
Doesn't that limit the amount of work government is going to do? Doesn't that limit the number of projects government can actually now implement?
Exactly. Right now,
but also that means, again, translates to lack of service delivery for our people.
Yes, it means that unless somebody is able to hold a stick and whip accounting officers and say, look, if you are given 100 billion this quarter, you must show that you spent all of it. Otherwise, give a reason why didn't you spend it? What explanation will they give? So the net effect of the current strict measures is to make civil servants reluctant to spend. By the way, I should tell you, some of these civil servants may not be spending money because they are not well conversant with the new system.
Yes.
That, I think, possibly that contributes 20%. But I think that 80% of the problem is that the opportunities for withdrawing the cash, imagine if you're traveling abroad today, your per diem will not be paid to you in cash. You will have to get it through the bank. These MPs who have been forcing accounting officers or intimidating them and blackmailing them to give them to finance their travels abroad, and then they get the allowances and stay here in town. Now, there is already an accountability system whereby if money is given to you, it is put on your bank account and it leaves a paper trail. At the end, by the way, the system, the way it works is that immediately you log on as an accounting officer to spend, information directly goes to the Auditor General in real time. Instantaneously, the Auditor General knows that you're spending this amount of money on this project from the government account. 2, the internal audit in the ministry is seeing. The official in the central bank is seeing. The Secretary of the Treasury, Keith Makanizi, is seeing. The system is so open. And 2, immediately you finish clicking on your button like this that you have spent that money. There is a reconciliation and an audit trial. Should you have paid money wrongly, the next day you'll be caught. In any case, the system itself is very resistant to theft, in the sense that when you log on and you put in a client to be paid, who is not in the system, it will refuse. If you try to make an expenditure that has not been approved, it will refuse. Remember that the payment is pegged onto a ministry's work plan. One of the reasons why right now people are not spending money is all these layers of control and exposure have made civil servants reluctant to spend government money. They cannot spend it because the incentive to spend on it previously was that if I spend 100 million shillings, perhaps 30 million is mine.
Yes.
Now you spend 100 million, you have zero money on it, so they will not spend.
All right. Many thanks, Andrew. And we have to leave it there. We really have overshot our time. And that was Newsnight.